welcome to the Bottom Up Skills Podcast. I'm Mike Parsons, I'm the CEO of Qualitance, and we are there, ladies and gentlemen, the final part, the 12th part of our Unstuck series, where we really face the biggest challenges that product managers face, and we try and find solutions and answers to these problems. And in the last show, we dealt with the top of the funnel, and today we deal with the bottom half of the funnel, and we ask ourselves, how do we keep our customers? Now, this assumes that the product is live, you've had problem solution fit, product market fit. This is all really part of the distribution and conversion fit, and asking ourselves some critical questions about how customers are behaving. Are we creating enough value? Are we capturing enough value? This is the really big question. So there's 3 ways to go about answering this question of how do you keep your customers. And like the top of the funnel, the second half of this funnel is built around retention, revenue, and referral. 3 R's to match the 3 A's that are at the top of the funnel. Now, each of these areas, retention, revenue, and referral, all have some key questions. And so I'd like to talk about those key questions. I'd like to really dig into those and present to you a way of thinking about keeping customers. And I really do hope that this inspires you to serve your customers, create value for them. And if you do that, you're going to have a fantastic little product. Okay, so let's start with retention. Now, retaining customers, sometimes retaining customers is kind of a tricky process. Look, if we've worked really hard, we're sort of a bit relieved when we actually got a customer, but then the work starts all over again because we have to retain them. And look, if we've done a good job, chances are somebody will see our product, and I know, wait for it, they're going to copy it. So very quickly, there will be competitors, and once there's competitors, people will undercut you on price, so you've got to retain your customers. And the key question to ask is how many people come back a second, third, 10th time to our product. Now, when we break down retention, this is really good because somewhere in retention, there's this real truth to the product. And that's really finding out for ourselves, how much do people come back, which is a proxy for how satisfied are they. So you might want to really ask yourself, are we really satisfying not only the early adopters, but here's the important thing, the early and late majority. This is really, really important. Now, another big metric in retention on top of satisfaction is going to be your churn rate. Now, your churn rate is how many customers, out of every 100 customers, how many are leaving you and within what sort of time period. This one is really important to get into. Obviously, it's a bit tricky in the early stages of a company because you haven't had a lot of customers leave because, frankly, you haven't had many customers to begin with. But this retention rate is really, really important because it's such a clue. Because if you can see a good cohort of people coming back regularly, weekly, maybe daily to your product, then this is you should be relieved when you see that. If people are using it, as what happens with most products, they use once and never return, that's a terrible retention situation. So you really want to get over that hump of getting them back for that second or third time. This is really, really important. Now, another part of this funnel, next step down is, okay, how many are we retaining? How many people start paying and how much do they pay? This is really, really important because sometimes we make the mistake of vastly overestimating how much our customers are going to pay. So key revenue metrics to have in your mind is, what does it cost us to acquire a customer? And then what does it cost us to get them to first purchase? And does their average monthly revenue map out on an annual basis? And if we grow at this rate, at what point will we be a viable business? This is really, really important because when we think about revenue, the other thing here is that the acquisition costs could be out of control. So what I mean here is that, look, we've got customers that are paying, but actually, let's say each customer pays $5 a month, but it's costing us $10 to acquire them. Then you've obviously starting to have a problem. So what you want to make sure that, if a customer let's say a customer spends $100 on their first two purchases and it costs you $20 to get them, can you afford? Is that a viable cost of acquisition? This is a really important thing because a lot of early stage companies find that their acquisition costs are much higher, and that whilst they are having revenue, they're not making any profit. Like, there is no margin in the business, to say it differently. So this is why revenue is really important, why retention is very important. Now, I want to get to the last but really important part of the funnel, which is referral. We know that a vast majority of people will be influenced by the most powerful model of customer acquisition, which is advocacy. When people recommend your product or service to others, this, for every outreach, has the most effective results. So what we often talk about in Lean Startup is your viral coefficient. And you want to try and get your product, for every active customer, to generate one complete new customer, because that viral coefficient is really good, because it means if you work hard and acquire 100 customers, you'll have delighted those customers, satisfied those customers to such a degree that they'll each recommend the product once to another customer. So 100 becomes 200, and then you can see how it sort of snowballs from there. So when we think about referral metrics, the king of referrals is NPS. So if you want to understand how likely your customer is to refer someone, do an NPS survey where you ask them this question. And sometimes you can follow up and give them an incentive. If they're in in an advocacy status, they're really, really delighted with your product, you can actually give them an incentive or a means to go out and refer your product or service to others. Now, you can do some other things, like you can look at your building sharing into your product and how much social sharing people do. That's good. It's not as good as the NPS because, sharing has slightly different characteristics to NPS, but it's still a decent metric to look for. And there's a whole practice around referral marketing and how to encourage customers to refer your product to others. Well, there you go. For today, we've looked at retention, revenue, and referral as all ways of keeping the customer. And keeping your customer is a very close relative of getting your customer. And that used the 3 A's: awareness, acquisition, and activation. Coming together, that's 6 parts of the Pirate Metrics funnel, which is a great way to put growth marketing at the heart of your product. I know this has been like a rip-roaring quick dash through these key challenges we face as product designers, creators, and builders. I really hope you've enjoyed some of the things we've talked about and how they've really helped you maybe remind you of some things or brought you some new thinking on how you can build a better product, how you can create more value in the world. All right, it's been great to do this series. I hope you've enjoyed the key challenges of product management, and I hope you're just a little bit more unstuck and you're on your way to building something great. All right, this is the Bottom Up Skills Podcast. That's a wrap.